For more on the WikiLeaks emails, and for that matter, the Russian involvement, Katie Bowe-Williams, cybersecurity reporter with The Hill, who has covered the WikiLeaks dump, if you want to call it, or continual dumps, extensively. Katie Bowe, appreciate you being here. What do you make of the Clinton campaign comparing this to a Watergate break-in?
Well, what the Clinton campaign is doing here is really echoing some of the concerns that I'm hearing from some of my sources in the security research community, which is that the Russian government is using...
You say your sources, nonpartisan sources?
Yeah, I would say that's a fair thing to say. That you have a foreign government that is using WikiLeaks as a tool, some would say a weapon to influence public opinion. Now, what influence the U.S. election means, what influence public opinion means, that doesn't necessarily mean help Donald Trump win. It might just mean sow uncertainty, sow discord.
When you look at what the Russians have been doing, or allegedly have been doing, and then you hear the U.S. for the first time sort of naming and shaming the Russians in a very public way, much more than any U.S. officials have ever done from the Chinese, do you get the sense from your sources that they have it buttoned up pretty tight? They have incontrovertible proof that the Russians are behind this?
Certainly in the case of the DNC hack, that is the case. They have not made a public attribution with regards to the theft of Mr. Podesta's emails, and they're very, very careful before they say this is who it is.
How closely aligned are Julian Assange and the Russian intelligence services?
That's a really, really good question. We don't know. The interesting thing about WikiLeaks is to talk about WikiLeaks is to talk about Julian Assange. It's a very, very small organization. He will claim hundreds of volunteers working for him, but in fact, it looks like it's a one-man shop. And he's not very clear about where he gets his documents, how he vets them, where they're coming from.
Well, and to that point, we have not heard the Clinton campaign confirm or deny the John Podesta emails. So we don't know if it's Julian Assange in the bottom of the Ecuadorian embassy in London, sort of adding in a little color here and there, or if it's a true recitation of private emails.
I mean, you're getting at the heart of this issue, which is, are these emails authentic, or have they been doctored in some way? And with no insight into how he vets his documents, there's really no way to know that.
As you've been up on the Hill and you've been talking to folks, do you get the sense that there is as much interest in the WikiLeaks emails as there is, for example, in the Donald Trump accusations? Because when you watch the network news, and I know that The Hill did a big piece on this, it's like a 1-to-30 ratio between accusations versus Donald Trump and WikiLeaks.
Well, I think what you're seeing is actually a candidate who sort of failed to grab a hold of what is effectively opposition research that has been dumped into his lap by Julian Assange. And I'll give you an example of what I mean. Just days after the original dump that we had sort of the content of some of these paid speeches to Wall Street in them, he goes on Twitter and launches into a tirade against Paul Ryan and effectively tips off a civil war in his own party. So there's an argument to be made amongst, I think, a lot of the strategists that I'm talking to, that he's sort of blowing his own opportunity to make this a campaign issue, although I think you're starting to see him grab hold of individual emails more now.
Sufficing to say, there's a lot in these emails that aren't being made a big deal.
I think they're being reported on, and I think you are seeing individual stories on content of the emails, but it's really incumbent upon the candidate himself to raise it to the level of a campaign issue.
Yeah, and we haven't certainly seen that necessarily from Trump surrogates in terms of hitting on each individual issue, although Trump on the stump today in New Hampshire talked a little bit about the issue of Hillary Clinton allegedly getting one question in advance in a town hall, those kinds of things. Katie Bowe, appreciate your work. Come back when you have a scoop.
Yep.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks.